Back when I was 12 years old, I used to love making short films with my friends. One of our first films was called The Fencing Academy, and we were so excited about making this film. I remember my friends had made these cloth costumes. I even had a curly lipstick mustache. But I remember on one day we were filming this scene out in this field, and all my friends were looking at me like, okay, what are we gonna do now? And I was scratching my head, and I had forgotten a box of props behind, and I think something that everybody realized pretty quickly was that I wasn't super organized. I was starting to lose people's attention. It felt like trying to herd a bunch of cats. People were drifting off to go back to the beach, and I was like, no, wait, come back, we haven't finished filming yet. I learned a difficult lesson that day.
Ready?
If we're gonna be successful in this journey that we've been going through together from dream to screen, we're gonna have to master the art of planning and preparing for our film. All right, so tip number one is to create a high-level schedule right off the bat to manage your time. I think one thing I've learned over the years is that it's really important that we don't just rely on our instinct when we're mapping out how long our project is gonna take. Because if you're anything like me, it's really easy for us when we're trying to predict how much time we're gonna have available for us in the future to look at it with rose-colored glasses. So I find it's really helpful to quantify our scheduling a little bit and then to start to compare it with all our real life. To start this process, I find it's helpful to just list out each thing here that we're gonna need to do overall in the process. For now, we're just trying to get a rough idea of the big picture. So here for my budget, I've said, okay, maybe 3 days. For funding, it's gonna take me a week. To assemble my team, it's gonna take 2 weeks. Find actors, I need to post my casting call and go hold some auditions. When we get to the end here, especially to how we want to distribute our film, let's say, with Belong, I knew I wanted to submit it to some local film festivals. So I was able to go to filmfreeway.com and look up some local film festivals, and it has all the different deadlines for those festivals. When you have a concrete deadline like that, then what you can do is you can say, okay, I know this film festival is happening, say, on the 23rd, and so I'm gonna work backwards from there to figure out when I need to start each part of the process. You'll probably have a reality check and realize whoa, I need to start quite a bit earlier than I thought. And that's really great, because if you do start nice and early, it'll help make everything in the process so much easier, so much less stressful. Okay, so next part of the process is breaking down your script. Usually I would grab a paper copy of my script, but I'm just gonna use this iPad copy because that's what I have available. And I would say, okay, for each category of the elements that I need to collect in my script, like my actors, locations, props, costumes, sound effects, I would choose a different color and assign that to that particular category. In order to make these lists, I've got them partially filled out here, but I would go through, I can see in my script here, childhood photos of Adam, so I would highlight Adam. Okay, I see there's a colleague here. I see Eric here, his neighbor Eric. So I'd go through, I'd highlight everything, and I'd start to list them out here. So I'd just make these big old lists. And that's super useful because then as we move forward in the process, it'll give us a more detailed sense of how much time we're gonna need to be able to collect each of these resources, and also how much money that we're gonna need to spend as we assemble our budget. One of the challenges of managing a film is that there's so much information that you need to keep track of. So you've got your movie, and then within that movie you've got your scenes, and within those scenes you've got your shots, and then with those shots you've got certain elements like, your props and costumes. And then even those elements might have bits of information associated with them, like what store you're gonna get them from or how much they cost. You've also got this like Rubik's Cube of shifting availability of these different elements. Like your crew has specific days where maybe they can help out on, then your actors have a certain set of availability and your locations are only available at certain times. The weather might only cooperate on certain days. You get the picture. But one solution I found that's really helpful to keep all this information organized and to be able to shift it around quickly to adapt as things change is a tool called Notion. Notion is an all-in-one workspace that combines databases, notes, and project management tools. For example, I've got a table here set up that has all the scenes of Belong. Here you can see the description of the scene, so it's Adam skateboarding to work, what filming day we were thinking of doing it on, some other information here, what actors are involved with that scene. So in that scene it's just Adam. The really cool thing though is that once I've got this information laid out here, I can start to view it in different formats. I've got another tab here set up to view this data grouped in this Kanban cards-like format, where I can group things by what filming day we were planning on doing it on. So here I can see all the scenes that I'm thinking of doing on our first filming day. And let's say the gym here, these scenes I can see by this little line here are taking place at the gym. Let's say the gym's not available on day one. I can just grab those cards and say, okay, I'm gonna have to do those shots on a different day, drop them over to that other day, and bam, that property is also updated in this overall spreadsheet. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so then when it comes to creating a budget, at its most basic, that's just where you want to list out the resources, the amount of money that you have available, and then underneath that, you want to compare that to what you're going to spend in each category. For each of these things here, crew, actors, my crew graciously agreed to work for free on this project. They volunteered. My largest expenses here were for actors, locations. Insurance is a big one that I think a lot of newbie filmmakers like myself don't always realize we need to budget for. And in order to figure out, say, how to arrive at one of these numbers, like how much to pay my actors or whatever, I just had to do a bit of research. I would Google, what the typical indie day rate for an actor is, and figure out, okay, in my budget range, what's reasonable. Then you just multiply by the number of actors in your production and the number of days you're gonna be needing those actors for, and that gives you that end number that you can then stick in your budget. It's important to have this last category here, contingency, and just like with margin in your schedule where you leave yourself a bit of extra padding, contingency is like that with your finances, where you budget a bit of extra breathing room so that, say, if a location falls through and you have to, at the last minute, get a more expensive location, you won't blow your budget. For more information, check out the companion article that I wrote on this topic. Tip number 5 is to be adaptable. There's a great business leader named John C. Maxwell that I've learned from. One of the things he says is that it's important to realize what's most important to you and whatever you're trying to accomplish. Once you've identified that, to be flexible in how you go about accomplishing that goal. For example, imagine that I was working on a film and I was writing a script for it, and I was like, man, I really want there to be a chase scene in this particular part of the film. And at first, I'm imagining it with a police car is chasing this Ferrari and there's this crazy action sequence. My producer is like, boy, you crazy, we don't have the money for a chase scene. I could just cut the chase scene altogether, but let's say that it's something that I identify as, no, there's something in there that's really important. But then I'd want to get specific about, okay, what is it in this chase scene that I really value? Maybe it's the fact that it's a high stakes, exciting moment in the film. and I want there to be a sense of danger and forward movement and maybe some cool cinematography with some moving shots. Well, I can do all of that without the Ferrari and the police car that would cost a lot of money for licensing and, to shut down a road and all that stuff. If I instead make it a bicycle chase or a skateboard chase or even just a foot chase. As psychologist Henry Cloud likes to say, don't let the ideal be the enemy of the real. In other words, don't let the perfect scenario that you don't have the resources for stop you from doing the best you can with what you have at your disposal. There you have it. Now, when it came to actually making the film Belong that I've been talking about on this channel, pre-production took about 2 months on and off around all the other things that I was doing in my life. It was nice to see how, at the end of the day, I've come a long way from that story I told you at the beginning of this episode with me and my friends filming out in the hot sun. When I sent out the call sheets when we were filming Belong, one of the actors sent me an email back and was like, hey man, I really appreciate, I'm really excited about how well organized this is and how, you've structured everything. And I think it helps people just feel more confident and more relaxed so that everybody can do their very best on set. Now, don't get me wrong, filming was still pretty intense. We had to do some last minute adaptation, change some locations at the last minute because of availability. It was manageable at the end of the day, and we managed to get all the shots that we were after, and I feel really proud of what we managed to accomplish. Stay tuned for our next episode where I'm gonna dive more into the actual process of what it was like filming on set and talk a little bit about what I think is the secret sauce of filmmaking. Until next time, peace.